When I first moved into Cedar Ridge, it felt like a fresh start. After losing my wife 2 years ago, all I wanted was a quiet place where my son and I could rebuild. The neighborhood looked straight out of a home magazine. Identical hedges, trimmed lawns, pastel houses all lined up like well-behaved schoolchildren. It was clean, calm, and just organized enough to feel safe. The first week was smooth. Neighbors waved. A few offered casserole. My son, Micah, loved riding his scooter down the quiet cul-de-sac. I remember thinking, this might actually work. Then I met her, Margaret Ellison. She was standing outside the HOA office one Saturday morning in a navy pantsuit, clipboard in hand, hair sprayed into immobility. "You must be Mr. Parker," she said, smiling like a tax audit. "We keep a tight ship here." She wasn't exactly rude, just off, like she measured friendliness in teaspoons. I didn't think much of it until the note came. A formal letter folded neatly and slid under my door. It read, "Notice of violation. Trash bins left out overnight. Please comply with HOA waste disposal policy to avoid further penalties." Seriously? I'd been here 8 days. I chuckled, shook my head, and tossed the letter on the kitchen counter. That was the first warning. At the time, I figured it was just a quirk of the neighborhood. I had no idea it was only the beginning. At first, I tried to laugh it off. I told myself, it's just a strict neighborhood. They like things neat. But within weeks, the letters kept coming, each one more ridiculous than the last. Grass height exceeds regulation limit by 2.3 inches. I'd mowed 2 days before. 2, but fine. I mowed again. Then came the notice about the decorative solar lights Micah and I had installed along the walkway. Tiny glowing lanterns we picked together at the hardware store. The letter said they weren't board-approved fixtures and had to be removed immediately. No warning, just a violation. Still, I complied. No need for drama, I thought. But the one that really got me was about the shed. Micah has autism. Small. Spaces help him feel grounded, calm, so I installed a modest wooden shed in the backyard. It wasn't an eyesore. It was painted to match the house, tucked behind the fence, and barely visible from the street. Then I got slapped with unauthorized permanent structure, must be removed within 10 days or face daily fines. That was the moment the alarm bells started going off. I walked the neighborhood and counted 3 other homes with backyard sheds. One even had neon trim. Yet, no violation signs, no angry letters. I tried to appeal, sent emails, left voicemails, even showed up at the HOA office. Margaret wasn't available. "We'll review it at the next board meeting," her assistant said. That meeting never came. Something was off, and I was starting to feel it in my gut. This wasn't about rules. This was personal. I didn't even know the HOA had a newsletter until one landed in my mailbox with a glossy photo of my front yard, my actual house, printed under the headline, "Repeat offender, residents who refuse to comply." I stared at it for a long time, stunned. My lawn, my porch, even the old scooter Micah left out were all on display, like I was some local menace. It felt humiliating, not just for me, but for my son, too. What kind of community publicly shames its residents? A few days later, another letter came, thicker this time, more official. Final notice: continued non-compliance will result in legal action, including fines and possible removal from the community. I read it twice to be sure I understood. They were threatening to evict us from a house I bought with my own money, on land I paid taxes for, all because of a therapy shed and lawn height. Micah sat across the table with his cereal, watching my face. "Are we moving again?" he asked softly. That broke me. From that moment on, I started saving everything, every letter, every warning, every time-stamped photo. I built a digital folder labeled Cedar Ridge HOA, Evidence. I knocked on neighbors' doors, asked if they'd received similar notices. Most of them looked over their shoulders before speaking. One man whispered, "Don't get involved, man. Just play it safe." Another woman pretended she didn't recognize me. They were afraid of Margaret, of the board, of being the next target. Realized then, I wasn't just dealing with a rule-obsessed HOA. I was up against something deeper, a quiet, controlled system built on fear. By the end of that month, I'd had enough. If the HOA wanted to play dirty, I'd meet them with facts. I took a week off work and buried myself in research. Public records, property filings, anything I could get my hands on. Cedar Ridge's HOA had its own website, password protected, of course, but with a bit of digging, I found archived versions through the state HOA registry. That's when things got interesting. The landscaping company we all paid for every month, the one billing for seasonal refreshes and mulch replenishment, it was registered under a guy named Calvin Ellison, Margaret's nephew. I cross-checked. Addresses and phone numbers to be sure. Same family, same game. Then I looked at the dues history and found that our fees had quietly jumped 18% last quarter. No public meeting, no homeowner vote, no notification. Just changed. And the board. Meeting minutes? Spotty at best, half were missing. The rest were obviously backdated or written vaguely, like discussion held on vendor selection with no details. Just when I thought I was hitting a wall, I got an email from a burner address. Check your mailbox, from someone who knows. I found a manila envelope inside later that night. Inside were printed emails, invoice breakdowns, and even a scanned resignation letter. One line stuck out: Margaret is abusing the position. This is no longer ethical. That was all the fuel I needed. I scanned every document, tagged every file, and built a dossier I titled HOA Fraud, Cedar Ridge. I didn't know where this was heading yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going down quietly. I found Samantha Reed through a late-night HOA horror forum. She was a local attorney who'd taken down more than one corrupt board, and she didn't mince words. After I sent over my evidence folder, she called within hours. "You've got a real case here," she said. "They're sloppy and arrogant. That's a dangerous combo, but it works in our favor." We met at her office the next day, and by the end of the week, we had filed a formal complaint with the State HOA Oversight Committee. Samantha also began preparing for a civil suit in case the board tried to retaliate, which, of course, they did. 3 days later, I received a letter. Not the usual violation notice, but something nastier. Cease and desist. Your defamatory attacks on the board's integrity will not be tolerated. Further action may result in legal consequences. So now I was the one being threatened for exposing facts. That same night, I heard a loud bang outside. My mailbox had been smashed, its door hanging open like a broken jaw. I checked my driveway, tires slashed front and back. Micah cried when he saw it. And when I went to check the security camera footage, the system had been mysteriously reset to factory settings. But this time, I wasn't helpless. I had backups of the footage from previous days. I had witness statements from 2 neighbors who saw a dark SUV idling near my home. Most importantly, I had Samantha, who was already drafting a restraining order and escalating the case. They wanted to scare me into silence. All they did was prove me right. Samantha didn't waste time. With every piece of documentation I'd gathered and the new evidence of threats and property damage, we took the case straight to the police fraud division. She made the call, and I watched her outline the abuse with the precision of a surgeon. The officer listening didn't even blink when she mentioned financial misconduct. He simply said, "We'll look into it." And look into it they did. Barely. A week later, a search warrant was issued for both the HOA office and Margaret Ellison's home. The day it all went down, I stood across the street, arms folded, watching as 3 patrol cars and a black, unmarked SUV pulled into Cedar Ridge. Officers walked straight into the office, no knocking, just badges and purpose. Moments later, they emerged with laptops, banker boxes and ledger books, hauling out years of paper trails and digital secrets. Margaret was escorted out of her home in handcuffs. Charges: embezzlement, intimidation, and election fraud. I couldn't believe it. The same woman who once smiled at me with that icy calm was now being read her rights on her own manicured lawn. Word spread faster than wildfire. Local news crews showed up, drones buzzed overhead, and neighbors peeked from behind curtains like it was a live soap opera. And then something even more surprising happened. People started talking. One family shared how Margaret fined them into submission after they hosted a cultural festival. Another couple revealed how their appeal for a disability ramp was lost 3 times. For the first time since moving in, I felt something shift, not just in the power structure, but in the neighborhood itself. The silence had broken. Following Margaret's arrest, the HOA was officially placed under state receivership, a temporary measure to stabilize the mess she left behind. A state-appointed manager stepped in, combed through the books, and put all community operations on pause. No more fines, no more threats, just quiet relief. A month later, they announced a new, transparent election for a restructured interim board. To my surprise, several neighbors nominated me. At first, I hesitated. I never wanted to be involved in HOA politics. I just wanted a peaceful home for my son. But Micah looked up at me and said, "If you don't do it, maybe someone like her will." So I ran, and I won. As part of the new board, the first thing we tackled was the bylaws. With help from Samantha and the state oversight team, we rewrote them to include mandatory public meetings with recorded minute quarterly financial disclosures open to all homeowners, anti-retaliation, protections for anyone filing a complaint, but the moment that made it all worth it. The shed, not only was it formally approved, it was praised as a model for accessibility and emotional wellness. We even created a new guideline allowing similar accommodations without penalty. Neighbors started stopping by. Some shook my hand. Some brought cookies. One elderly couple came by just to say thank you and admitted they'd been too afraid to speak before. It wasn't just about me anymore. Cedar Ridge had changed, not because of the rules we added, but because people finally saw what standing up looked like, and they chose to stand with me. It's strange how a place that looked so peaceful could become such a quiet battleground. When I first moved to Cedar Ridge, I thought the uniform lawns and smiling neighbors meant safety. I didn't realize that silence can hide so much. Now, walking Micah down the same street, things feel different, not just to me, but to everyone. The air is lighter, the tension's gone, and the shed? It's more than a structure now. It's become a small sanctuary, surrounded by garden beds volunteers help plant, lavender, tomatoes, even a few sunflowers that Micah insists on watering himself. Margaret is facing trial. Her charges are serious enough that it won't be a slap on the wrist. And the other board members, under investigation, every last one. Turns out, once one person stands up, others find the courage to follow. Micah opens the shed door and smiles at me before slipping inside. It's his space. It's where he feels calm again. I stand there for a moment, taking it all in. The same neighborhood that once threatened to kick us out is now one I helped rebuild. Not with revenge, but with rules, with truth, and with people who finally saw through the illusion. If I've learned anything, it's this. Sometimes you have to stand alone to change everything for everyone. And as I glance down the freshly repainted fences and relit porches, I know for sure this place is finally what it always pretended to be, home.